We're broadcasting live direct from our studios in Moscow. This is RT International. I'm Sean Thomas. Certainly glad to have you with us. Now, we start with an ongoing manhunt in Vienna. Police have confirmed one death in a shooting near a synagogue in the city center, while gunfire has erupted at a total of 6 different locations. Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz has called the violence a repulsive terror attack. Police are still searching for the shooters and are asking people to stay off the streets. Here are some of the images of the chaos. For more on what has happened, we're now joined live by our European correspondent, Peter Oliver. Peter, thanks for staying across this for us. Give us the latest, if you could.
Hi. Well, it's been confirmed that one person was killed. At least 15 people are in hospital, some of those understood to be in a serious condition in Vienna on Monday evening into Tuesday morning. This is after multiple gunmen opened fire at 6 different locations across the Austrian capital. Karl Nehammer, the Austrian Interior Minister, has said that this has been investigated as a terror attack. The Austrian military has been deployed to the streets. He has described the gunmen as heavily armed and incredibly dangerous. In fact, the ongoing manhunt is due to the fact that it's unknown exactly how many gunmen took part in the shooting. One of the perpetrators was confirmed to have been killed at the scene. It's understood that at least one other was detained by the authorities. However, Mr. Nehammer, the Interior Minister, asking for people who have any mobile phone videos of the incidents of the shootings to send those to the police. There's a specific police website that they can be uploaded to as part of the investigation. There is a plea as well not to share those on social media. Now, what we've heard from Sebastian Kurz, the Austrian Chancellor, is a condemnation of this attack. He said that our police will carry out decisive action against this hideous terrorist attack. We've also heard from the French President Emmanuel Macron saying that the people of France stood in grief with the people of Austria, while the Austrian President, Alexander Van der Bellen, has said that Austria will continue to defend freedom and democracy. He praised those emergency services who were on the scene almost immediately on Monday evening after this shooting took place, and also sent condolences to the families of those who've been caught up in this terror attack. Now, when it comes to international reaction as well, I said we'd heard from Emmanuel Macron. We've also heard from the Spanish Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, who said that hatred will not bend our society. Europe will resist terror. As a Europe again is quaking from a terror attack. That's what this is being investigated as at the moment. One person confirmed dead, at least 15 in hospital after multiple shooters opened fire at least 6 locations across the Austrian capital on Monday evening.
All right, RT's Peter Oliver there for us in Berlin. We know that you've got your finger on the pulse of this situation as it develops. We will come back to you through the night. Thanks for that. Now we can cross to Mark Almond live for more on this situation. He is at the Crisis Research Institute. Mark, thanks for being with us here on RT International. The terror incident is still ongoing in Vienna, as we understand. Given that gunfire was heard in 6 different locations, do you think that this was a pre-planned attack?
It looks like it, doesn't it? It seems to resemble the Bataclan attack in Paris in 2015, when you had a number of different incidents around the city. And so it may be that in Nice last week, there was a person who came from Tunisia with the intention of launching the attack on the church in Nice, but he was a lone operative. Whereas in this case, we have to ask, are these people who come from outside Austria, or are they locals, or these people been living in Vienna? And that raises different questions. If it's a kind of terrorist squad sent in from the outside, it's less alarming, but clearly a very serious situation, than if it's a group of people who have been living for years, all their lives in Austria.
It does certainly seem It does certainly seem that there is an escalation of sorts in general, if you can say. But the Austrian Chancellor recently said that his government would not tolerate radical Islam. Let's listen to how he put it in a tweet in late October, and we'll see you on the other side of that.
All Christians should be able to freely and safely practice their faith in Austria. We will resolutely continue the fight against political Islam and will not show false tolerance here. Thanks to all the police officers for their involvement.
All right, a similar statement was recently heard from the French president, and yet 3 days ago, France saw a terror attack in Nice, which we just alluded to just a second ago. Do you think that this violence in France and Austria could somehow be linked, or are these different operations altogether?
Well, it's possible that there is a coordinator somewhere who sent the Tunisian to Nice to carry out the attack there and has organised this one in Vienna, and God forbid has planned for other ones in the coming days elsewhere in Europe. But it's equally possible that it's a kind of copycat, although I have to say, for people to already have firearms and possibly a suicide vest indicates that they were planning this. They may not have known, almost certainly wouldn't have known, that somebody was going to do what happened in Nice, because even if there's a coordinator, clearly the security of such a terrorist attack would be that you wouldn't tell the different groups around Europe that there were others going to take action. And so it may be that there are others waiting for some trigger elsewhere. But certainly this looks like an organised group. They've got firearms, they seem to have explosives, and they also possibly have even planned an escape route, because as we talk, it's still not clear that the Austrian police have been able to either capture or isolate the remaining terrorists who are on the run.
So elsewhere in Europe, the Spanish Prime Minister has also tweeted that Europe will resist terrorism. Do you expect this confrontation to ramp up across the entire continent?
We don't know, but there must be the risk that there are small groups, because we are talking of tiny numbers of people who can cause this mayhem. Small groups in other parts of Europe, in big cities, particularly if there's also a coincidence between the introduction of lockdowns and this attack. Maybe, for instance, I hate to say it, in London, coming up with our own lockdown in 48 hours, there will be people who will use the same operation, that is to say, looking at places where people are gathering for a last drink, a last night out before they go into the lockdown. And that gives you plenty of targets from the point of view of the attackers. So we must be worried that there is some kind of coordination behind this. And there's an outside risk, of course, that some distorted or demented individual will try and carry out a copycat attack. But particularly in Vienna, the attack seems to have been planned and organised and equipped with weapons.
I'm going to ask you to go down the rabbit hole with me just a little bit here, but how do you see the situation in France, Austria, elsewhere in Europe developing in the near future?
Well, of course, one big danger is, why is this done? And it's done, in fact, to provoke revulsion and to create an atmosphere of hostility, not just to terrorists, but to all Muslims, allowing that this has been done by Muslims. And at least one of the perpetrators has been videoed shouting Allahu Akbar. So I think at the moment it seems very likely that it's an Islamist group. And of course, what the radical terrorists want to do is to get a backlash against Muslims across Europe, particularly in France and Austria. And that in turn will, in a sense, corner and force the Muslim minorities, they hope, to side with them. I'm not sure that will work, but there is a risk, of course, that there will be anti-Muslim actions by people who are outraged by these attacks who don't discriminate between the reality that a small number of brutal people carried out these attacks and the large numbers of Muslims who live across Europe. And so that's obviously the strategic goal of the terrorists, is to create that polarization, to turn ordinary people against each other and to target minorities by making such great, indiscriminate attacks upon civilians, upon defenseless people.
All right, Mark Almond, Director of the Crisis Research Institute. It's always a pleasure to hear your thoughts, even when it comes to such serious matters like this. Thanks for being with us here on RT International.
Thank you.
All right, French President Emmanuel Macron, whose country experienced the previous attack in Europe, has tweeted words of solidarity.
We, the French people, share the shock and grief of the Austrian people, struck this evening by an attack in the heart of their capital, Vienna. After France, a friend of ours is attacked. This is our Europe. Our enemies must know who they are dealing with. We won't surrender to anything.